Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Of Bricks and Dragons. Today we are looking at the R60 T Wing Interceptor. This interceptor was originally designed to replace the A Wing Starfighter. Unfortunately, for the Rebellion, the end result turned out to be a poor replacement for the craft. Okay, so like the A Wing, the T Wing was a light, fast response starfighter. The ship's speed was similar to that of the Interceptor, or of the TIE Interceptor, but it also included a hyperdrive capability. With shield and hull strength similar to that of the Z-95 Headhunter, the craft would not last long if it was hit accurately, even with a medium power salvo. It had three HK 50, 5J Mark II afterburner ion engines and was armed with a light laser cannon and proton torpedo launchers. Maneuverability was another disappointment. To its designers, it was less maneuverable than the A Wing. As per the A Wing, weapons were light, with only dual laser cannons being fitted in order to maintain maneuverability. However, the T Wing's warhead load was nearly equal to that of the X Wing, making it a good multi role fighter in the hands of a competent pilot. The Interceptor had several flaws, namely its cheap construction using poor quality materials. Its shields were additionally too light for its role. On top of its limited memory, the nav computer was obsolete and full of coding errors. Looking at the ship, the rebels used the fighter only a short time before deciding to sell it to neutral factions, hoping that it would at least gain a little bit of profit. Unexpectedly so. The T Wing proved very effective in the hands of pilots such as the nomadic pirate leader Ali Tark, and the fighter quickly became popular with independents and proliferated and was proliferated across the galaxy. Additionally, it was popular in the Outer Rim, where the low price and favorable service packages offered by uh, harsh Kessel salesmen, um, although it was never saw much use in the Rebel Alliance. The noteworthy ship created a starfighter to distribute to attendees of the Remnants Day um, there along to the Empire. All right. So what we have here is we have a ship that is very much, to me, a kind of look of the Star Wars version of what is the Colonial Viper out of Battlestar Galactica. I kind of look at it in that regard. It is a interesting ship. Um, some of the other things that I'd heard about, read about in some of the other books, is the seat was so uncomfortable it was hard to sit into it or sit in it even after an hour. And of course, here we're expecting fighter pilots to uh, work in this for hours on end, doing battles and so on and so forth. So going all the way up here, this is a Rebel Alliance ship. Um, we are at about 10 meters long with this. It has a crew of one, cargo capacity of about 35 kilograms or roughly about 70 pounds or so. Has consumables of 2 days. Like I said, the seat was in one of the write ups was said to be so very uncomfortable that sitting in it for more than an hour was just very challenging to pilots. The hyperdrive multiplier is a times one, but you're only limited to two jumps. So essentially, you're going to jump out to somewhere, come back, and that's pretty much it. Maneuverability being a 3D is not really all that bad. Space 11, so that is a fairly fast ship. In atmosphere, we can go about 1,300 kilometers per hour. The hull of a 2D, which is not a very strong hull, it's right there is your average kind of a base for a ship. Shields being a 1D plus 2, not very notable. Um, It's an amazing thing, because when you look at how the D6 Star Wars had done things, everything went up in pips of a solid die code, so of one in this case, and then a 1D plus two plus one, 1D plus two, and then it would go to a 2D. But when you're rolling for this stuff, you have the potential of hitting a 4, 5, or 6 compared to, or even a 3 compared to just whatever your one die is plus a 1 or a 2. So if heavens forbid you roll a 1 and you only have a plus 2, you only have 3 to absorb whatever damage is coming in. So really, it does not absorb much damage, which does get reflected pretty well here. Our sensor packet, passively, we can scan out to about 2 kilometers. Our actual active scanning is 3.5 kilometers. Our search is 4 kilometers, and our focus is only 200 meters. Our weapons, we have 2 laser cannons. Of course, they are forward firing. These are fire linked, so you're going to shoot, they're both going to fire at the same time. We have a fire control of 2D, so, there again, being really about your base fire control package here. Um, and of course, we can do about 5D damage. So damage is pretty good. Uh, Much like the reading that I had done prior to this, um, you're really looking at about the fire control being on par with um, an X-wing. Now, it did mention that it has the photon torpedo launchers. Uh, the only thing is, on the one in the book, we don't have it here. So I'm going to say it is very much like that of the A Wing. Um, the A Wing, having been an early fighter that the Rebel Alliance had used, they have a lot of variants of it. And it was a quirky ship to learn how to pilot, um, which then meant that you needed to have a trainer ship as well. So you would have a training fighter, so that way you could have an experienced pilot in there helping to train a new pilot how to fly. Um, you know, we do a lot of that in today's day and age with our own fighters and all that, because one fighter operates different from another fighter to another fighter. And you get the idea. And quite often, if you look at today's military, and I know that they do this for, or at least they used to, and I'm sure that they still do, because just getting confirmation with some of this just for Air Force. They will start you off in a prop plane. So you have a piston driven prop plane that you will start learning to fly in there, and then they'll start moving you up to a trainer jet, and then they will get you into what you're actually going to fly. So that way you have the principles down before you go to the next more expensive aircraft that you're really looking to get into. But you can get to be a better pilot because you learn rudimentary skills on something that's slower, easier to maneuver and pilot, and that something that's a little bit more forgiving in case you do make a mistake. Because once you get into these big, expensive, you know, uh, high, uh, kind of grasping for a word here, essentially a ship that can do all these wonderfully fantastic things in combat, but they're not as forgiving at low speeds, or if you're doing a little something stupid, yeah, it could do a lot of damage here. So that's what we have here today. It's a very interesting starfighter. I do kind of like it. It is an interesting thing to throw out here. Looking at it in game sense, because these are supposed to be fairly inexpensive, we do not have a price on these. um, it is one of those things of maybe something I would throw out. Although, looking at where we get this information from and where we do see these, it has appeared in Star Wars TIE Fighter, Defender of the Empire, Star Wars Galaxies, The Complete Online Adventures, which is a so-so game. Um, Star Wars X Wing vs. TIE Fighter, Balance of Power campaigns, Star Wars X Wing Alliance, and Star Wars Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith. So, um, honestly, I don't really remember this being in the Star Wars galaxies, but when they brought in the starships and then they started tweaking things, I started getting less and less excited about how the game actually ran, because it seemed like Sony was having a hard time trying to actually run a Star Wars game. Really, they had some different ideas. I'm not going to blame Sony themselves, but the developers for the game just did not seem to understand how to really do a good game in my mind. Um, I think I've touched on it before. Initially when you had a character before they brought in the jump to light speed and all that, any experience you got, you could put it to wherever you wanted to go. Um, Once you had your jump to light speed and you're in a ship, any experience you had only went to whatever you were doing. So um, it really limited what you could or could not do. And if you were stuck in something you just had a hard time passing through, or you couldn't get the experience in gunnery or whatever it was, you just could not seem to level that up at all. So now you're just kind of stuck, and it just really dragged the game down and just made it kind of blah-ish, I'll say. It became more of a chore trying to figure out how to do this. And when you're doing a mission for the umpteenth time and you just keep failing, and it's like there's got to be a way at this, and I just couldn't do it. So I know I'm not the greatest at video games. There are plenty of people that probably got through it without a problem. Um, but those were my experiences, and my take on it. Now, whether it's right or wrong is inconsequential. The game doesn't exist anymore. For all those that could just fly through it, I really applaud those people because they're a lot better at it than I was. But here we are with this, another interesting starfighter that most people don't typically see in the Star Wars universe unless you're actively into some of these older games. I don't know if they have this in Fantasy Flight games. I you know a lot of all the stuff I'm grabbing is out of the old D6. So um, here we are. I'm hoping you have a wonderful day. I'm hoping you're enjoying this series, and we'll see you in the next video.